The champagne glass slipped from Park Jae-won's fingers and shattered against the marble floor of the Kim mansion, but he didn't hear it. He didn't hear the gasps of the elite guests around him, didn't notice the way his bodyguards immediately tensed and reached for their concealed weapons. The most feared mafia billionaire in all of Seoul, a man who had made grown men weep with a single glance, stood frozen like a statue, his dark eyes locked on the slender hand of the woman collecting empty glasses from a nearby table. Not her face. Not her body. Her hand. Specifically, the worn silver ring on her fourth finger, a ring with a tiny, almost invisible scratch shaped like a crescent moon. A ring he had carved that scratch into himself, 18 years ago, with a rusty nail and trembling fingers, while promising a little girl with beautiful dark skin and eyes full of stars that he would find her again. "I'll marry you," he had whispered that night, his 10-year-old heart breaking as they dragged her away from the orphanage. "I'll become rich and powerful, and I'll marry you. Just wait for me, Adeora. Just wait." She had never taken off the ring. And neither had he. Before we continue, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is about to take you on a journey you will never forget. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The woman turned, and Jae-won felt his heart stop completely. 18 years had transformed the skinny little girl into a stunning woman. Her dark skin glowed under the chandelier lights, her natural hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and her eyes, those same eyes that had haunted his dreams for nearly 2 decades, widened as she noticed the shattered glass at his feet. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said quickly, setting down her tray and hurrying toward him with a small dustpan. "Let me clean that up immediately." She didn't recognize him. Of course she didn't. The last time she'd seen him, he'd been a scrawny, malnourished orphan with hollow cheeks and clothes 3 sizes too big. Now he stood 6 feet 2 inches tall, his body hardened by years of fighting his way through Seoul's underworld, his custom Italian suit probably worth more than she made in a year. His jaw was sharper, his presence commanding, his entire being radiating the kind of dangerous power that made people cross the street to avoid him. But inside? Inside, he was still that broken little boy who had cried himself to sleep every night for 3 years after they took her away. Jae-won. His second-in-command, Kang Min-ho, appeared at his side, concern etched across his scarred face. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I have," Jae-won whispered, his voice cracking for the first time in 15 years. "Min-ho, I found her. I finally found her." Min-ho followed his boss's gaze to the woman now kneeling on the floor, carefully picking up glass shards with her bare hands. His eyes widened with recognition, not of the woman herself, but of what she meant to the man beside him. "The girl from the orphanage? The one you've been searching for all these years?" Jae-won didn't answer. He couldn't. He was too busy watching a small drop of blood appear on Adeora's finger where the glass had cut her, too busy fighting the overwhelming urge to drop to his knees beside her and take her into his arms. "Ouch," she muttered softly, examining the cut. Before anyone could react, Jae-won was on his knees beside her, his $1,000 pants pressing against the champagne-soaked floor, his hand wrapping gently around her wrist. "You're hurt," he said, and his voice came out rougher than he intended, thick with 18 years of longing. Adeora looked up, startled by his proximity, and their eyes met for the first time since they were children. Up close, she was even more beautiful than he remembered. Her skin was smooth and rich, her lips full, her eyes a deep brown that held both warmth and wariness. The years had added curves to her frame and sadness to her gaze, but she was still his Adeora. She was still the girl who had shared her bread with him when the older kids stole his food. She was still the girl who had held him while he sobbed after the nuns beat him for stealing medicine for a sick friend. "It's nothing," she said, trying to pull her hand away. "Please, sir, you'll ruin your suit. Let me just. Do you remember me?" The question hung in the air between them, charged with desperation. Adeora froze, her brow furrowing in confusion. I'm sorry." "Look at me," Jae-won commanded, but his voice was gentle. "Really look at me, Adeora." She went still as a statue, her eyes widening at the sound of her name on his lips. How do you know my name? Have we met before? Jaewon's heart cracked. Of course she didn't remember him. He had changed too much, had become someone completely different. But he would make her remember. He would spend the rest of his life helping her remember if he had to. With trembling fingers, he reached into his shirt and pulled out a thin silver chain. Hanging from it was a ring, silver, worn, with a tiny crescent moon scratch on its surface. The twin to the one on her finger. Adora's dustpan clattered to the floor. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears as recognition flooded her face. Jaewon, she breathed. Little Jaewon. The boy who used to call me his moon. Because you were the only light in my darkness, he finished, tears streaming down his own cheeks without shame. Adora, I found you. I finally found you. Before either of them could say another word, a sharp voice cut through the moment like a blade. What the hell is going on here? Kim Sung-ho, the host of the party and one of the most powerful crime bosses in Busan, strode toward them, his face twisted with irritation. He was a handsome man in his late 40s, silver-streaked hair swept back from a cruel face, his eyes cold and calculating as they moved between the kneeling billionaire and the maid. Adora, why is our guest on the floor? What did you do? She did nothing wrong, Jaewon said, rising smoothly to his feet and pulling Adora up with him, positioning his body slightly in front of hers in a protective stance that was pure instinct. I dropped my glass. She was helping me. Kim Sung-ho's eyes narrowed as he studied the subtle positioning, the way Jaewon's hand lingered on the maid's arm, the tears on both their faces. Something dangerous flickered in his gaze. I see. Well, Adora is one of my most valuable household staff. I'd hate for her to be distracted from her duties. There was an emphasis on my that made Jaewon's blood run cold. He recognized that tone. He'd heard it in his own voice when speaking about things he possessed, things he would kill to protect. How long has she worked for you? Jaewon asked, keeping his voice carefully neutral even as his mind raced through possibilities, strategies, threats. 3 years now. I found her working at a restaurant in Itaewon, struggling to make ends meet. I offered her a position here, a place to live, protection. Kim Sung-ho's smile didn't reach his eyes. She's been very grateful. Adora's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on Jaewon's arm, and he felt a tremor run through her body. Fear. She was afraid of this man. Every protective instinct in Jaewon's body screamed to life. He had built an empire on violence and blood, had done terrible things to rise to the top of Seoul's underworld, but he had always told himself it was for this moment. To become powerful enough to protect the ones he loved. To become powerful enough to find her. Now he had found her, and she was living in the house of his rival, wearing the clothes of a servant, and trembling with fear at the sound of her employer's voice. Mr. Kim, Jaewon said, and there was ice in his tone now, the kind of cold that made seasoned criminals beg for mercy. I believe we need to discuss some changes to our business arrangement. The party continued around them, but tension crackled in the air like electricity before a storm. Two of the most powerful men in Korea's criminal underworld faced each other, and between them stood a woman who didn't know she was about to become the center of a war. Pause for a moment. If you're enjoying this story, drop a comment below telling me what you think will happen next. Will Jaewon be able to save Adora? What secrets is Kim Sung-ho hiding? Let me know your theories. 3 hours later, Jaewon sat in the back of his armored SUV, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Minho sat across from him, scrolling through a tablet filled with information. Kim Sung-ho acquired her 3 years ago, Minho reported grimly. His men found her working double shifts at a restaurant and a cleaning company, sending most of her money back to Nigeria to support her younger siblings after their parents died. He offered her a job that paid triple what she was making, with room and board included. And the catch? Minho hesitated. He's been patient. Building her dependency on him. Making sure she has nowhere else to go. But according to our sources within his household staff, he's been making more direct advances recently. She's been resistant, but she's trapped, J1 finished, his voice deadly quiet. She can't leave without losing her income, her housing, and potentially putting her siblings at risk. There's more. Minho's jaw tightened. Kim Sung-ho isn't just interested in her romantically. He's been showing her off to his business partners, hinting that she might be available as a way to secure certain deals. The growl that escaped J1's throat was barely human. I will destroy him. I will tear down everything he's built brick by brick, and I will make him watch. J1, we need to be strategic about this. Kim Sung-ho controls 60% of the southern drug trade, and he has powerful allies. If we move too quickly, then find me leverage, J1 snapped. Find me everything. His secrets, his debts, his enemies. Anyone he's ever betrayed, anyone who wants him dead. I want options on my desk by morning. And the woman? Edaora? J1's expression softened for just a moment before hardening again. I need to talk to her. Alone. Without Kim Sung-ho knowing. That won't be easy. He keeps his staff on a tight leash, especially her. She's only allowed to leave the compound for grocery shopping on Thursday mornings. Then I'll be at the grocery store on Thursday morning. Minho studied his boss for a long moment. He had served Park Jae-won for 15 years, had watched him rise from a teenage street fighter to the most powerful man in Seoul's underworld. He had seen Jae-won face death without flinching, negotiate with killers without breaking a sweat, order executions without hesitation. But he had never seen him like this, desperate, emotional, vulnerable. You really loved her, Minho said quietly. All those years of searching, I thought. I don't know what I thought. But you really loved her, didn't you? Even as a child. Jae-won stared out the tinted window at the Seoul skyline, his reflection ghostly against the city lights. She was the first person who ever loved me, he said simply. In that orphanage, I was nothing. Less than nothing. I was the troublemaker, the kid nobody wanted to adopt, the one the nuns said would end up dead or in prison. But Edaora, she saw something else in me. She believed I could be more. When I told her I would become rich and powerful and marry her one day, she didn't laugh. She just nodded and said, I know you will, Jae-won. I believe in you. He turned to face Minho, and there were tears in his eyes again. I became all of this for her. Every deal, every fight, every drop of blood on my hands, it was all so I could become someone worthy of finding her again. And now that I have. His voice broke. Now I have to become something even more. I have to become her salvation. Thursday morning arrived with gray skies and a light drizzle that matched Jae-won's mood. He stood in the produce section of an upscale grocery store in Busan, pretending to examine tomatoes while his eyes remained fixed on the entrance. He had dressed down for the occasion, jeans, a simple black t-shirt, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He looked almost normal, almost like the kind of man who might shop for his own groceries. Almost like someone who hadn't ordered 3 deaths this week alone. The door chimed, and his heart stuttered. Edaora walked in, a shopping list in her hand and exhaustion in her eyes. Even in simple clothes, she was stunning. But up close, in daylight, Jae-won could see what he had missed at the party. The shadows under her eyes. The way she flinched when someone brushed past her. The nervous habit of touching the ring on her finger, as if reminding herself that once, long ago, someone had promised to save her. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. Edaora. She spun around, her eyes going wide before softening with recognition. Jae-won. What are you doing here? How did you? I had to see you. We didn't get to talk at the party, and I have so many questions. He glanced around, noting the 2 men in suits pretending to shop 3 aisles over. Those are Kim Sung-ho's men, aren't they? She followed his gaze and nodded, her expression tightening. They follow me everywhere. He says it's for my protection, but it's to keep you trapped. She didn't deny it. Instead, she turned back to the produce, pretending to select oranges while speaking in a low voice. You shouldn't be here, J1. If he finds out you sought me out, he's not a good man. He's dangerous. So am I. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw the moment she understood. The little orphan boy had grown into something terrifying. Something that could match Kim Sung-ho and win. What happened to you? She whispered. After they took me away, after they sent me to that foster home in Daegu. I tried to find you. I sent letters to the orphanage, but they always came back unopened. I thought you had forgotten me. Never. The word came out fierce, almost harsh. I never forgot you, Adaora. Not for a single day. After you left, I had nothing to lose anymore. I ran away from the orphanage when I was 12. I lived on the streets, joined a gang at 14, and I did what I had to do to survive. To become strong. To become someone who could find you and protect you. He reached out and gently took her hand, his thumb brushing over the ring she still wore. I've been searching for you for 18 years. I hired private investigators, hacked government databases, bribed officials. You moved around so much, Nigeria, London, back to Korea, and every time I got close, you had already moved again. But I never stopped looking. I never stopped believing I would find you. Tears spilled down Adora's cheeks. I moved because I was always running. From bad foster homes, from men who wanted to take advantage of me, from poverty. I came back to Korea because I thought maybe I could find you. The orphanage where we met. But it had burned down years ago, and all the records were destroyed. I know. I was the one who burned it. She looked at him sharply, shock and something like fear in her eyes. They were hurting children, J1 explained, his voice flat. After you left, they got worse. Much worse. When I became powerful enough, I went back. I made sure they could never hurt anyone again, and then I burned that place to the ground. It wasn't the whole truth. The nuns who had beaten him, who had locked him in the basement for days without food, who had told him he was worthless and unlovable, they had suffered before they died. But Adaora didn't need to know that. Not yet. J1. She shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. This is all so much. You're not the boy I remember. No, he agreed. I'm not. I've done terrible things, Adaora. Things that would make you look at me differently if you knew. But everything I am, everything I've become, it was all so I could stand here today and tell you that I'm going to get you out. I'm going to free you from Kim Sung-ho, and I'm going to keep the promise I made 18 years ago. What promise? He lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her ring finger. I said I would marry you. And I meant it. Before she could respond, one of Kim Sung-ho's men appeared at the end of the aisle, his eyes suspicious. I should go, Adaora said quickly, pulling her hand away. If they report back that I was talking to you. Tomorrow night, J1 interrupted. There's a charity gala at the Shilla Hotel. Kim Sung-ho will be there, and so will I. I'm going to make my move. What kind of move? I'm going to offer to buy out his entire organization, legitimate businesses, properties, everything. And I'm going to make it clear that you're part of the deal. Adora's face paled. You want to buy me? Like property? I want to free you. And unfortunately, men like Kim Sung-ho only understand one language, power. If I try to take you without giving him something in return, he'll come after us both. But if I make it a business transaction, one that benefits him financially. J1's jaw tightened. It's not the romantic rescue I always imagined, but it's the reality of the situation. And what if he says no? J1's eyes went cold, and for a moment, Adaora saw the killer he had become. Then I'll take you anyway. And Kim Sung-ho will learn why no one crosses Park Jae-won and lives. The gala at the Shilla Hotel was the event of the season. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, politicians mingled with celebrities, and Seoul's elite sipped champagne while pretending they didn't know their wealth was built on the backs of suffering. Kim Sung-ho arrived with Aora on his arm. It took every ounce of Jae-won's self-control not to murder him on the spot. She was dressed in a stunning red gown that hugged her curves, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. She looked beautiful, and miserable. Her smile was fixed, her eyes hollow, and every time Kim Sung-ho's hand touched her waist, she flinched almost imperceptibly. "Easy," Min-ho murmured at Jae-won's side. "We have a plan. Stick to the plan." Jae-won took a deep breath and fixed his mask of calm confidence into place. Then he walked across the ballroom floor toward his target. "Kim Sung-ho," he said, extending his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What a pleasure to see you again. Park Jae-won." Kim Sung-ho shook his hand, squeezing just a little too hard. "I was surprised to hear you would be attending. You usually avoid these events." "I've decided to expand my social horizons. And my business ones." Jae-won's gaze flickered briefly to Aora before returning to Kim Sung-ho. "I have a proposal that I think you'll find interesting." "Oh. And what might that be?" "A complete acquisition of your Busan operations. 40 billion won, transferred to accounts of your choosing. You walk away rich enough to retire anywhere in the world, and I take over everything." Jae-won paused meaningfully. "Everything?" Kim Sung-ho's expression didn't change, but his grip on Aora's waist tightened. "That's quite an offer. But I'm not sure I'm ready to retire just yet. Perhaps we could discuss it further. In private." The two men stared at each other, predator to predator, while Aora stood frozen between them. "I have a private suite upstairs," Kim Sung-ho finally said. "We can talk there. Aora, go mingle with the other guests." "Actually," Jae-won interrupted smoothly, "I'd prefer if she joined us. Since she's part of what I'm proposing to acquire." The words hung in the air like a declaration of war. Kim Sung-ho's face darkened, and for a moment, Jae-won thought he would refuse. But then a calculating look entered his eyes. "Fine. This should be interesting. If you're still with me, hit that like button right now. Things are about to get intense, and I want to know you're locked in." The private suite was opulent, all gold trim and velvet furniture, but the atmosphere was anything but luxurious. Tension crackled between the two men as Aora sat rigidly on a sofa between them. "Let's stop playing games," Kim Sung-ho said, pouring himself a whiskey. "You don't want my business operations, Park. You want her. I want both. But yes, she's the primary objective." Kim Sung-ho laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "And what makes you think she's available?" "Aora and I have an arrangement." "An arrangement where you keep her trapped and terrified?" Jae-won's voice was ice. "I've done my research, Kim. I know exactly what you've been doing. The isolation, the financial control, the threats against her family in Nigeria. You've been grooming her for 3 years. I've been patient." Kim Sung-ho's smile was predatory. "Building something meaningful takes time. Aora understands that, don't you, my dear?" Aora said nothing, but her hands were shaking. 50 billion won, Jae-won said flatly. "Final offer. You take the money, relocate to Singapore or wherever you want, and never contact her again." "And if I refuse?" Jae-won leaned forward, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Then I stop being polite." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then Kim Sung-ho set down his glass and pulled out his phone. "Did you really think I wouldn't do my research on you, Park Jae-won? The boy from the orphanage who clawed his way out of the gutter. The street rat who somehow became a billionaire?" He showed them his phone screen, a photo of Jae-won and Aora as children, standing outside the orphanage, their tiny hands clasped together. "I've known who she was to you since the day I recruited her. Why do you think I chose her specifically? Adora made a small, wounded sound. You targeted her because of me? Jaewon's voice was barely human. I targeted her to control you. Eventually. I knew one day you'd come sniffing around, and when you did. Kim Sung-ho's smile widened. I'd have leverage. The great Park Jae-won, brought to his knees by a childhood sweetheart. Jae-won was on his feet in an instant, but Kim Sung-ho was faster. He grabbed Adora, pulling a gun from his jacket and pressing it to her temple. He taunted. Let's not be hasty. I may not be as powerful as you, Park, but I'm not stupid. I have 12 armed men in this hotel, all loyal to me. If anything happens to me, they have orders to kill every person in this ballroom, starting with the Nigerian ambassador's wife. That would be inconvenient for Adora's immigration status, don't you think? Jae-won forced himself to stillness, his mind racing. What do you want? What I've always wanted. Partnership. Your resources, combined with my operations. We could rule all of Korea together, Park. And Adora. He stroked the gun along her cheek. She could be our shared motivation. A reminder of what you stand to lose if you ever think about betraying me. You're insane. I'm ambitious. There's a difference. Kim Sung-ho gestured toward a contract on the table. Sign the partnership agreement, and she lives. Refuse, and, well, you know how these things go. Jae-won looked at the contract, then at Adora's terrified face. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He had planned to buy her freedom, not sign away his independence. But the gun against her head left no room for negotiation. He reached for the pen. Jae-won, don't. Adora suddenly shouted. Don't sacrifice everything for me. I'm not worth it. You're worth everything, he said quietly. You always have been. His fingers closed around the pen. And then the lights went out. Everything happened at once. Gunfire erupted somewhere below. Kim Sung-ho cursed, his grip on Adora loosening for just a moment. And Jae-won moved with the lethal speed of a man who had been fighting for his life since he was 12 years old. He disarmed Kim Sung-ho in 3 moves, breaking his wrist in the process. The gun clattered to the floor, and Jae-won kicked it away before sweeping Adora behind him protectively. What is this? Kim Sung-ho screamed, clutching his broken wrist. What did you do? I told you to do your research, Jae-won said coldly. Did you really think I'd walk into your territory without a backup plan? Your 12 men are currently being neutralized by my 30. Your offshore accounts were frozen 30 minutes ago by contacts in the Financial Services Commission. And that photo you showed us? The only copy. Your phone was cloned the moment you connected to the hotel's Wi-Fi. The door burst open, and Minho strode in with a team of armed men. Building is secure, boss. Minimal casualties. Police are on their way, our police. Kim Sung-ho's face had gone gray. You planned this. From the beginning. I planned for every contingency. Including your betrayal. Jae-won stepped closer, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. You made one critical mistake, Kim. You thought because I came from nothing, I would always be afraid of losing what I'd built. But the truth is, I've already lost the only thing that ever mattered to me once. I spent 18 years getting her back. Did you really think I would let you keep her? What are you going to do to me? Jae-won smiled, and it was terrible. I'm going to let you live. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. I have enough evidence of your human trafficking operations to ensure that. But you're going to live, Kim, and every single day for the rest of your miserable existence, you're going to remember that you had everything and lost it all because you touched what was mine. He turned away dismissively and took Adora's hand. Come on. Let's get you out of here. They were almost to the door when Kim Sung-ho made his move. He had been concealing a knife in his boot, and he lunged with the desperation of a cornered animal. Jae-won saw the blade coming and threw himself in front of Adora. The knife buried itself in his shoulder. Aotearoa screamed. Minho's men opened fire. Kim Sung-ho dropped, dead before he hit the ground. J1. Aotearoa caught him as he staggered, pressing her hands against the wound. No, 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 someone call an ambulance. I'm fine, J1 managed, though his voice was weak. It's not deep. I've had worse. You stupid, stupid man. You could have died. He reached up to touch her face, leaving a smear of blood on her cheek. For you. Worth it. Always worth it. 2 weeks later, J1 woke in his penthouse bedroom to find Aotearoa asleep in a chair beside his bed. She had barely left his side since the incident, nursing him back to health with a determination that reminded him of the little girl who used to bandage his scraped knees with torn strips of her own clothing. You're staring. Her eyes had opened, and she was watching him with a soft smile. I'm allowed to stare. I've been waiting 18 years to stare at you. She laughed, and the sound was like music. Then her expression grew serious. We need to talk, J1. About everything. About who you are now, about who I am, about what any of this means. I know. He sat up slowly, wincing at the pull of his stitches. I've done terrible things, Aotearoa. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I've killed people. I've destroyed lives. I became a monster to survive and then. I just kept being one. Do you regret it? He thought about the question carefully. I regret some of it. Not the orphanage, they deserved what they got. Not Kim Sung-ho, he would have hurt you forever if I hadn't stopped him. But there were others, people who were just in the way. People who didn't deserve what happened to them. For those, yes. I have regrets. Aotearoa was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. When we were children, you promised you would become rich and powerful and marry me. You said it like it was the most natural thing in the world, like you were just stating a fact. I believed you then, J1. I believed you with my whole heart. And now? Now. She looked down at their intertwined fingers. Now I'm afraid. You're not the boy I remember. You're something else entirely. Something dangerous. And I don't know if I fit into your world anymore. You are my world. He sat up fully, ignoring the pain, and cupped her face in his hands. Everything I built, every empire I created, every drop of blood I shed, it was all for this moment. To find you again. To keep you safe. To love you the way I've always loved you. But I'm nobody, J1. I'm a maid. I have nothing to offer you except everything I've ever wanted. He pressed his forehead to hers. Aotearoa, I don't need a partner who can match my wealth or my power. I need someone who sees me. The real me. The boy under all the armor. You're the only person who ever has. She was crying now, tears streaming down her beautiful face. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. But I've spent 18 years being afraid of never finding you. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want to be brave enough to love you, if you'll let me. She kissed him then, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as years of longing finally found release. He pulled her onto the bed beside him, mindful of his injury but unable to keep any distance between them. The ring, she whispered against his lips. I never took it off. Not once, in 18 years. Neither did I. She pulled back to look at him, wonder in her eyes. Why did you believe we'd find each other again? It seemed so impossible. Because you believed in me when no one else did. Because you told me I could be anything, and I needed to prove you right. Because. He traced the curve of her cheek. Because some promises are too important to break. We're almost at the end of this incredible story, but before the final chapter, make sure you've subscribed to this channel for more stories just like this one. Drop a comment telling me your favorite part so far. 6 months later, the wedding of Park Jae-won and Adaora Okoro was the most anticipated event in Seoul's social calendar. It was held in a garden that overlooked the Han River, decorated with thousands of white roses and traditional Nigerian fabrics woven between Korean silk. Adaora's siblings had flown in from Nigeria, the two younger sisters and one brother she had sacrificed everything to support. They met Jae-won with skepticism at first, having heard rumors of his violent reputation, but his obvious devotion to their sister soon won them over. "He looks at you like you hung the moon," her sister Kayamika whispered as they prepared for the ceremony. "He used to call me his moon," Adaora replied, adjusting her veil. "When we were children. He said I was the only light in his darkness." "That's either very romantic or very concerning." Adaora laughed. "Both, probably. He's a complicated man." But as she walked down the aisle toward Jae-won, seeing the tears streaming down his face as he watched her approach, Adaora felt nothing but certainty. Their path to this moment had been twisted, painful, full of darkness and danger. But they had found each other again, against all odds, and she knew with absolute conviction that she would never be lost again. "You kept your promise," she whispered as she reached him. "I will always keep my promises to you," he replied. "Starting with this one, I will love you, protect you, and cherish you for the rest of my days. I will never let anyone hurt you again. And every morning when you wake, I will thank whatever gods exist for giving me another day at your side. And I promise," Adaora said, tears flowing freely now, "to see you. The real you. Not the billionaire, not the mafia boss, not the dangerous man the world fears. I promise to see the boy who shared his blanket with me on cold nights, who dreamed of better things, who never stopped believing in us. I promise to love all of you, the light and the dark." They exchanged rings, new ones, platinum and diamonds, befitting their status. But they both still wore their original silver rings on chains around their necks, tucked close to their hearts where they belonged. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. "You may kiss the bride." Jae-won pulled Adaora close and kissed her with 18 years of longing, 6 months of healing, and a lifetime of love still to come. The crowd erupted in cheers, but neither of them heard it. They were lost in each other, two broken children finally made whole. That night, in the honeymoon suite of the most luxurious hotel in Seoul, Jae-won and Adaora lay tangled together, skin against skin, hearts beating in sync. "I can't believe this is real," she murmured, tracing the scars on his chest, marks from the violence of his past. "I keep expecting to wake up and find myself back in Kim Sung-ho's mansion, trapped and alone." "You will never be alone again," Jae-won promised, catching her hand and pressing kisses to each finger. "And if you ever doubt that this is real, just look at your ring. Both of them. Remember the boy who promised you everything and spent his life making it true." She shifted closer, her body warm against his. "What happens now? What kind of life do we build?" "Whatever kind you want." He rolled them over so he could look down at her, his dark eyes soft with adoration. "I have enough money for 1,000 lifetimes. We can travel the world, start a family, build orphanages that actually help children instead of hurting them. We can do anything, Adaora. The only limit is your imagination. What about your business?" She hesitated over the word. "The empire you built? I've already started transitioning away from the illegal operations. Min-ho is handling the legitimate businesses, and the rest." He shrugged. "Let someone else inherit the darkness. I've spent enough time in shadows. I want to live in your light now." She pulled him down for a kiss, deep and passionate, and for a long time, they didn't speak at all. Later, as dawn began to paint the sky pink and gold, Adaora lay with her head on Jae-won's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Tell me about our future," she requested softly. "Tell me what you see." Jae-won's hand traced lazy patterns on her back as he spoke. "I see a house by the ocean, maybe Jeju, maybe Busan. Somewhere peaceful. I see children with your beautiful skin and my stubborn spirit, running through the garden while you yell at them in Igbo and I pretend to be strict but spoil them constantly. I see holidays in Nigeria with your family, teaching our kids about both of their cultures. I see us growing old together, still wearing these ridiculous silver rings, still telling anyone who will listen about how we met in an orphanage and promised to marry each other. That sounds perfect, she whispered. It does, doesn't it? He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Thank you, Adaora. For what? For waiting. For keeping the ring. For still being you, after everything the world put you through. For believing in a scrawny little orphan who had nothing to offer you but promises. She propped herself up to look at him, her eyes shining with love. Those promises were everything, J1. They kept me going through the hardest years of my life. Every time I wanted to give up, I would look at this ring and remember that somewhere out there, a boy was fighting to find me. That kept me alive. Then we saved each other. We did. They kissed as the sun rose over Seoul, two people who had survived impossible odds to find their way back to each other. The scars remained, his physical, hers emotional, but they were healing now. Together. Some might say their love story was written in the stars. Others might call it coincidence, luck, or fate. But Park Jae-won and Adaora Okoro knew the truth. Their story was written in sacrifice, in resilience, in the unshakable belief of two orphan children that love could conquer anything. It was written in silver rings worn for 18 years, in promises kept against all odds, in the refusal to give up on each other even when the whole world said it was impossible. It was a love story for the ages. And it was only just beginning. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. Share this with someone who believes in love, and drop a comment below telling me what you thought. Should I write a part 2? Let me know. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, the greatest love stories are worth fighting for.